So I'm still planning for 6NS1. I have checked out my resources. I've looked at the CNI site. I have thought about my students and their interest. I've looked at the Glencoe resources. I have the standard analysis document up and ready so I can access those links as needed. And I'm ready to sit and plan for the class periods that will consist of instruction around 6NS1. So I looked. This 6NS1 started with an inquiry lab, and so I have that up. When I go back to the Glencoe resource, it kind of tells me how I can start developing the concept. So the day before, as an exit slip, these are the questions that I asked the students. I asked them to review division of whole numbers, and I wrote this on the board, right? I wrote 18 divided by 3 on the board. I asked them what was a dividend and which one is the divisor, how many equal groups, and what's the quotient, just to kind of see where my students stand in regards to understanding what division is. Okay, so that was my diagnostic piece, developing the concept of division. So when they came in that next day, this is what I'm preparing for them. We're going to go immediately into the inquiry lab. And the way that this resource suggests that I go about it is not just by posting it up there. It's by doing a numbered heads together. So if I have 30 students in the class, I'm going to have them number 1 through 4. And it says arrange students as number heads in groups of 4 to complete steps 1 through 3. Students can use rulers, measuring tape, fraction bars, number lines, or manipulatives to further understand the concept. So the important piece here is that you're not telling students what they can use. You allow them to enter the evaluation and the exploration of this problem on their own. It says here each student should ask for help and support if needed and be ready to explain how they arrived at the quotient. Same thing as you're walking around and students are engaged in this inquiry, don't give them answers. Ask them probing questions, just like the question that was asked here. I'm going to pull this question back up. So it says, Juan is building a set for the school musical. We already asked them what they know. Again, ask them that. Ask them what it means to equally divide something into half-foot pieces and kind of go from there. But again, refrain from giving them the answer. Just ask those probing questions that will pull out the pieces they know and what they need to find. So here it says, have the groups complete steps 1 through 3, and then you call on a student or a particular number in a group and have them explain their results to the class. And then it says students could take a second and explain to a partner why dividing by a half is the same as multiplying by 2. Again, that's helping them understand the concept of division and division of fractions. Okay, so that's for hands-on activity 1 that's in the inquiry lab. And then it kind of steps you through some pieces. And again, I like the way here that it actually asks questions throughout. There are blank groups of blank. So 3 divided by a half equals what? And then you check that solution by multiplying. So for hands-on activity 2, it says rotate the number heads. So this gets some movement going on in the classroom. You're going to take a number. You're going to tell all the number ones to go to a new group. And then the newly created groups will complete the steps. And then the group kind of makes sure everybody understands. And then they ask for help and support. And you're giving those probing questions. And then you have a student explain the group's results to the class. There's also an option here, trade a problem. So after students complete that, then they can create their own division problem. And you want them to model this same one, division of a whole number by a fraction. And then they trade problems with a partner. So look at that creativity. There are so many pieces of the 4 C's that are evident here. You're having them communicate. There's critical thinking because you're having them sit and think about the process. And then here you're asking them to create. And then again, evidence of the mathematical practices here. 1, making sense of problems and persevering in solving them. They're constructing viable arguments and critiquing the reasoning of others. So very important. And then for hands-on activity number 3, there are some other options for this. So as a teacher, you can decide. I would base this on my students' level. I may not have every class do activity 1, 2, and 3. It says here activity 1 is designed to provide more guidance than activities 2 and 3. I may have a class that's ready to dive into number 2. I may have one that I need to go back and do number 1 first and then actually go through all of them because they didn't quite grasp what I needed them to grasp. But again, the ways and the hands-on pieces that can be used while facilitating this instruction are here, and very helpful. And hopefully this is a piece that you will be able to utilize. So this is just the inquiry lab. I also want to note that there are virtual manipulatives here. So if for some reason a student needs to actually see that fraction, they have, I picked the wrong thing. They have fraction tiles here. And, I could pull up a half fraction tile. This says something about 3 whole parts. I could put these 3 whole parts together and then create and place the halves over here just so they could see. So if a student needs to see that visually, those virtual manipulatives will definitely help with that. Okay, so this was the inquiry lab. I'm still in chapter 4, so I'm going to access this other tab, and after the inquiry lab, there is the actual lesson. So remember, the inquiry lab is kind of giving them a chance to explore the concept before you give them the real meat behind it. So here it has launch the lesson, teach the concept, practice and apply. So these are some steps that you can go through. Tells the rigor levels, the vocabulary, ideas that can be used as you're teaching the concept, what you're focusing on. It has a short video that supports this content. There is a presentation here that steps through the actual concept of dividing whole numbers by fractions and all that good stuff. Again, some guided practice and some formative assessment strategies that could be used here as well. Once you go into the launch the lesson, you do the exact same thing we did with the inquiry lab. You're going to launch the presentation, okay? And then the slides for this particular lesson will appear. And same thing, you do not have to use all 16 slides. You can go back to the previous screen and customize and use the ones that are needed. This quick check that comes along with every lesson is really good because you can see, again, where the students stand on the prereq skills that are needed for this concept. Answers are there. And then this is an essential question that is linked with this particular standard. The standards, the math practices, what they're going to learn today, and then all this good stuff, okay? So again, these resources are here and you can utilize them at your discretion. I'm going to go back. And again, I want to remind you that this particular lesson, or this particular standard, was addressed in 3 different lessons: lesson 6, lesson 7, lesson 8. So I will go back as a teacher and make sure I look at all of those and line those up for my class periods and figure out what amount of time I need for each of these